Julianne spills out confessions to yet another taken man after the 5 News. She doesn't half choose him.
This lunchtime, a family doctor prescribing methadone is arrested on suspicion of manslaughter. Hello, it's 12 noon, I'm Rob Butler. The 50-year-old GP from Carlisle has been questioned by detectives and released on police bail. We'll have the very latest. Also in the programme, the Paddington disaster. John Prescott is said to backtrack on plans to tighten rail safety. And the Calypso Prince, as Charles enjoys the Caribbean beat. A GP has been arrested on suspicion of manslaughter after a series of deaths involving men with prescriptions for the heroin substitute methadone. The doctor was questioned by detectives in Carlisle before being released on police bail. Straight now to 5's Ben Ander, who's in Carlisle. Ben, what more can you tell us?
Well, Rob, this 50-year-old family doctor was involved, we are told, in a treatment programme for drug addicts. Now, the first suspicious death occurred in January of last year, but it was in January of this year that police first became alerted to the possibility of a crime. Now, at a press conference this morning, they told us that they're not ruling out the possibility of exhuming the 5 bodies involved to carry out full and detailed toxicology tests. However, for the time being, what they're going to do is investigate, first of all, the circumstances of each death, talking to people involved, perhaps other people on the programme, and secondly, also investigating the backgrounds of the 5 victims, who we understand are all young or youngish men. And the doctor has been released on police bail for now and told that the initial stages of the inquiry will last until at least June.
Ben, obviously it's still very early days, but what's been the reaction of the medical profession to news of this arrest?
Well, Rob, the first thing that's happened is that North Cumbria Health Authority, who have jurisdiction over this area, have suspended the doctor. His practice will continue operating with other doctors there. They will take charge of his patients for the time being. The General Medical Council has said that it will assist detectives in any way it can. The police are stressing that this at the moment is a manslaughter investigation. The suggestion is one of gross negligence or incompetence and not one of malice aforethought. However, of course, coming just 3 weeks after Dr. Harold Shipman was sentenced to life imprisonment for 15 murders, this does raise uncomfortable questions for the medical profession.
Thanks very much, Ben. In the next half hour, the Deputy Prime Minister, John Prescott, will outline his plans to improve safety on Britain's rail network after the Paddington train disaster. But in a highly controversial move, Mr. Prescott is expected to announce that he's abandoned plans to strip Railtrack of its role overseeing safety. That has already angered relatives of the 31 people who died in last October's tragedy at Paddington. One claimed that Mr. Prescott was just full of hot air. Well, 5's political editor Andy Bell is at Westminster. Andy, what can we expect from Mr. Prescott?
Well, Rob, as you said, in about half an hour, the Deputy Prime Minister will give his response to 3 reports into safety on the railways. But the central one is going to be the one from his own department, the Department of the Environment, Transport and the Regions. And the crucial central question to be addressed in that report is who should really have responsibility for rail safety? After the Paddington rail crash, there was huge pressure on the government to do something on rail safety. So Deputy Prime Minister John Prescott suggested that Railtrack would lose all responsibility for safety, and in the Lords his junior minister went even further.
Ministers are minded to transfer the main functions of the Safety and Standards Directive out of Railtrack in order to ensure public confidence that there is no conflict between safety standards and commercial interest.
But now it seems the government's changed its mind. Railtrack will keep responsibility for safety, albeit with a separate company to look after it. And that will include signalling. This was Signal 109, which the Thames train went through at red moments before the disaster. The second report will set out how to install new systems to prevent that happening. It'll focus on the train protection warning system, rather than the more expensive ATP, seen here, which many safety campaigners have demanded.
So, Andy, it looks as though this is a U-turn by the government. Why?
Well, Rob, it seems that John Prescott is going to agree with the report coming out of his own department that it would simply be too complicated and too expensive to transfer the responsibility for safety away from Railtrack to another fully independent body. But I'm joined here this afternoon by a solicitor acting for victims from 3 crashes, Christopher Mather. Mr. Mather, what do you think of this decision we're expecting on Railtrack and safety?
I think it's an outrageous decision. Those people who've been killed and injured in the crashes are going to be appalled to hear that Railtrack are going to be allowed to carry on as before.
But the idea is that this will be a separate body, completely hived off from the profit-making part of Railtrack.
Well, it's still going to be part of Railtrack, and I don't believe that you can erect a Chinese wall like that will simply overcome the problem. It should have been independent, truly independent.
But, of course, a lot of people are saying that for understandable reasons, policy was really made on the hoof straight after the disaster at Paddington, and perhaps some cool reflection was needed.
Well, maybe some cool reflection was needed, but I think those accidents, one after the other, the second during the inquiry into the first, just showed that we do need some independence in railway safety.
And on this other question they're going to address about safety systems on the railways, the government is going ahead and putting in a safety system to prevent people going through red lights, aren't they?
Yes, but of course it doesn't work at high speed, and it wouldn't have prevented the Southall crash, about which we're going to hear on Thursday.
Right, Christopher Mather, thank you very much indeed. And there'll be more news on that tonight at 6. Back to you, Rob.
Thanks, Andy. Some breaking news now. Detectives investigating the murder of a father of 3 during a burglary in Stockport have arrested a local man. Philip Street was stabbed to death with a screwdriver after tackling an intruder at his home in the early hours of yesterday morning. More stories making headlines this lunchtime. The House of Lords is threatening to stop the election for London's mayor unless the government gives every candidate a free mail shot. The move could boost Ken Livingstone's campaign if he decides to stand as an independent. The peers want the mail out to prevent discrimination against smaller parties, but the government says it would cost millions. The huge household goods company Unilever is to axe 25,000 jobs worldwide. That's 10% of its workforce. The Anglo-Dutch firm makes everything from Persil to ice cream and employs more than 16,000 people in the UK. Bosses say it's part of a radical 5-year restructuring, which will see up to 100 factories being closed. Supermarkets have been told that their stores could be closed and their prices limited if an investigation finds that consumers are losing out. The Competition Commission has sent the top 5 chains a list of restrictions which will be placed on them if they're found to be breaking monopoly laws. A British girl who was celebrating her 17th birthday on a family skiing holiday has been pulled alive from an avalanche at an alpine resort. Police believe it was triggered by snowboarders who'd gone off-piste. Throughout European ski resorts, avalanches have left 6 people dead in the past few days. Catherine Jones reports.
It's a combination of heavy snowfall across the Alps and rising temperatures over the weekend that's brought danger to the slopes. This double avalanche swept down a mountain in northern Italy yesterday. A group of skiers on an unauthorized route was swept away. 3 died and another is in hospital with severe hypothermia. That fatal accident was near Bolzano in Italy. But just over the border in Austria, 17-year-old Alice Reed from London had a very lucky escape. She was buried by a slide at the resort of Tauplitz, but her best friend's father, David Wallace, managed to dig her out.
You could see it was like something out of a horror movie just coming straight towards you. I thought, my God, an avalanche. And I'd read about them before in ski magazines, so I sort of went to curl myself up, thinking I have to protect my breathing ability. We were overcome by it. It all went black.
However, a third snowslide, this time at Davos in Switzerland, has claimed another 3 lives. That incident not only sparked a huge rescue operation, but also a police inquiry after reports snowboarders may have triggered the avalanche.
We could see that 2 snowboarders have been skiing very high up on the piste where they should not have been skiing.
Resorts are now blasting the snow off the slopes to try to make them safe, but the thousands of Brits now in the Alps for the half-term holiday are being warned it's up to them to ski responsibly. Catherine Jones, 5 News.
Remember the Green Cross Code man? Well, he's back. Yes, the road safety crusader returns to our streets to persuade a new generation of kids to stop, look and listen. For those who don't, a word of warning. The Green Cross Code man of a quarter of a century ago later turned into Darth Vader. Lucy Atherton has been to meet him.
Look, Green Cross man.
Looks like you two need a lesson in crossing the road.
Not so steady on his platform boots these days,
But our green superhero can still squash himself into tight lycra to fight the menace on our roads.
Great. You all say that with me? First, find a safe place to cross, then stop. Right, now.
He preached to 500,000 children in 14 years of wearing his underpants on the outside. Road accidents involving kids were cut by half, but 200 are still being killed every year, and we need him back.
Child pedestrians that were saved from having accidents was something about in the region of about 250,000. So I can say that myself and the campaign were responsible for saving something like about 250,000 lives.
He's been superhero and supervillain as Darth Vader in Star Wars, but it's as the big green man he was most happy.
So what does it feel like to be back in the costume? Does it still fit?
It feels good, actually. It feels nice. The only trouble, of course, is the Green Cross coat suit is about 20 years old, and I could do with a new suit, actually.
In the 70s, kids were taught to be responsible for their own safety, but today, when 95% of accidents are down to driver error, the focus has changed. So does that mean today's 30-somethings were listening all those years ago?
Look left and right before you cross the road.
Do you remember your Green Cross code?
Yes.
Go on then.
Look right, look left and look right again.
Well, not quite. Come on, Dave, what's it meant to be?
Stop, look, listen and think.
Lucy Atherton, 5 News.
Right, we'll give you a couple of minutes to learn that song while we take a short break right now. There are plenty more stories still to come here on 5 News as Prince Charles gets musical, beating the drum for Britain in the Caribbean. And the man who does love Beckham, Keegan, prepares for a Wembley showdown. We'll have all the day's sports news with songstress Trish. Rob's up on the roof with the weather prospects, so stay with us. Welcome back to the 5 News Centre. It is 12:13. Transplant services are being overhauled this lunchtime to try to stop people preventing the donation of organs for racist reasons. A government inquiry has condemned a previous racist donor operation as abhorrent. The donor scandal erupted last year when it emerged that a transplant was given the go-ahead at a Sheffield hospital, despite the donors demanding that the organs could only be given to a white patient. The inquiry said the organs should not have been accepted. Well, I'm joined now by Professor Peter Bell from the Royal College of Surgeons. Professor, what are you suggesting should happen now?
Well, in relation to the donation of organs, I think that there should be no conditions whatsoever to donation of organs, and that everybody in the transplant community would agree with that, so that we would agree with that one altogether. Do you mean in relation to what happens with improving the situation?
Well, that follows on because there aren't enough organs to go around, are there? Some people might say, well, actually, we're not prepared to donate unless we impose some conditions.
That is true, but I don't think we can go down that road. I think we have to educate the public to not impose conditions, and as a community we would not accept those, and nor would the College of Surgeons.
How, though, do you try then to get more organs being donated at a time when you're struggling already?
Well, the College of Surgeons produced a report, as you know, about a year ago, which the Department of Health looked at, and it made a number of suggestions in that, and we think central to that suggestion would be to have a national transplant service, which would have as part of its remit education at all levels, the production of teams who could go out and get organs at the maximum efficiency. And I think that's the way we should go, really. But that's not what the government is suggesting now. It's leaving it very much to a regional kind of service as it now is.
There have been lots of campaigns to try to persuade people to give organs in the past. They haven't been hugely successful. Why should this be any different?
Well, I think partly because they've not actually done the right things. I mean, for example, if you put on advertisements in primetime TV, for example, that would be helpful. Many of the adverts are at the wrong time of the evening or on a different channel. I think that would be one way forward. Another way forward is to have coordinators whose job it is, and many more of them, to go around hospitals to educate not only the public but the doctors as well in those hospitals that these organs should be available and should be used. They've done this in Spain quite effectively, for example, by increasing the number of people who are around on the ground at the time. I don't think you can just talk to people. You've got to be proactive as well in that way.
Professor Bell, thank you very much indeed.
Okay.
The Prince of Wales has arrived in Trinidad and Tobago for the start of his official visit to the Caribbean. He was greeted by a traditional steel band and even decided to join in himself, mashing out his own unusual interpretation of calypso music. Miranda Eales reports.
This is the first official visit Charles has ever made to this part of the Commonwealth. Shortly after arriving in Trinidad, he was whisked off to a reception at the President's residence. With the official exchange of gifts and pleasantries out the way, it was time for the Prince to loosen his Windsor knot and get a taste of the local culture. And what better way to enter into the Caribbean spirit than visit a pan yard where steel drums are made. He was greeted by the Renegades, a top steel band who were rehearsing for the carnival in 12 days' time. And it wasn't long before the rhythmic tapping of royal feet led Charles to try his hand on the drums. And he soon discovered it wasn't as easy as it looks. Luckily, Calypso King Super Blue came quickly to his aid. It's a pity the Prince won't be here to share his newfound talents during carnival time.
Well, I welcome the Prince of Wales to Trinidad and Tobago. Very nice man. Right? We love him. Yes.
Oh, he's charming. He's handsome. He's very nice. He's wonderful. We welcome him most of all.
But it's not all fun and games. The Prince is also here to reinforce strong links between the two countries. Over the next 4 days, he'll visit some of the poorest areas before he heads off onto the next stage of his West Indian tour. Miranda Eales, 5 News.
Now, with all the day's sports news, here is the very musical Trisha Doodoo.
He'll be down the Notting Hill Carnival next, Prince Charles, isn't he, on the Stilper? Pretty
Get
good.
on with it.
Oh, why? Well, England coach Kevin Keegan is demanding his side put together a performance against Argentina at Wembley tomorrow that will convince the nation that they can be a force in Euro 2000 this summer. Five's Keir Simmons is at Wembley, where the England team have been training. Keir, hello. Do you sense a determined mood in the air?
Absolutely. I mean, the England coach is making clear in no uncertain terms that he expects the players to play as if this were a vital match, not just a friendly. They've been training all morning behind the closed doors of Wembley behind me, and of course most of the attention is going to be on David Beckham. Not only is there that fallout with Fergie over the weekend, but also remember Argentina were the side that England were playing when he was infamously sent off during the World Cup. All the same, the coach is backing him, likely to play him in central midfield, possibly backed by the two Pauls, Ince and Scholes, just to give him a little bit of extra support.
And of course, up front, the news is that Leicester's Emile Heskey will make his first England start alongside Alan Shearer.
That's right, and he says he's very much looking forward to it, the big striker up there with Shearer. Also, someone else to look for, young 19-year-old Gareth Barry is likely to be playing from the start, and it'll be a nice present for him because tomorrow's his birthday.
Absolutely, thanks to Keir Simmons outside of Wembley. Paul Gascoigne may be nursing a broken arm, but that hasn't stopped clubs wanting his signature. The 32-year-old's been given an offer to end his playing days down under. The Sydney-based club Marconi Stallions have made what they call a serious bid to sign the Middlesbrough midfielder. Australia's richest club are fully aware of the colourful character's crowd-pulling power and seem unperturbed by the fact that Gazza has only scored 4 goals since he joined Middlesbrough 23 months ago. Tennis now. Tim Henman and Greg Rosetsky both enjoyed straight-set victories in their opening matches in the AXA Cup in London yesterday. Greg dismissed Frenchman Arnaud Clément in just over 1 hour, and Henman's doubles match was just as fleeting, as Carrie Brown reports.
Tim Henman making his first appearance in the AXA Cup at the London Arena, partnering Yevgeny Kafelnikov in the men's doubles. It was a great start for the British number one, the duo outclassing their opponents Jonas Bjorkman and Andrew Katzmann. You may not find their names familiar, but they were top seeds in the double tournament. They weren't counting on the recent coupling of Henman and Kafelnikov, who proved themselves as a formidable partnership, wrapping up the game 6-2, 7-6 in just 1 hour and 23 minutes. Henman's now in preparation for his first-round single match tomorrow against Argentina Mariano Zabaleta, and he's taking nothing for granted.
It's going to be tough. In these types of tournaments, there are no easy ones, so I've got to make sure that have good practice tomorrow, and I look forward to that on Wednesday.
Rosetsky, meanwhile, eased his way past 52nd seed Arnaud Clément, another straight sets victory to put the defending champion into the second round. If Britain's 2 top seeds make it through to the last 8, they'll come face to face in a British showdown. Carrie Brown, 5 News.
Married life seems to suit them, doesn't it? That's the sport. Now it's back to our Rob.
A tale of marriage not going too well here now. Thank you, Trish. You may remember that last week we brought you the latest show to hit the American TV screen, Who Wants to Marry a Millionaire? Well, unfortunately, there is no fairy tale ending for the winners. Groom Rick Rockwell returned from his honeymoon alone after accusations that he'd abused an ex-girlfriend. The wealthy bachelor married contestant Dava Conga in front of 16 million viewers, but TV executives have decided not to go ahead with a repeat of the show now. Funny that is the way the world is looking this lunchtime. We'll find out now what our team is up to for our evening show tonight at 6. Here's the programme editor, Mark Adams. Mark, what have you got lined up?
Rob, more on the GP who's been arrested on suspicion of manslaughter after a series of deaths of his patients. Bernardo will be reporting live from Carlisle tonight. Within the next half hour, the Deputy Prime Minister John Prescott will outline his plans to improve safety on Britain's rail network after the Paddington train disaster. He's expected to announce that he's abandoned plans to strip Railtrack of its role overseeing safety. In sport, England and David Beckham, of course, have been training at Wembley this lunchtime. We'll have a full report on that tonight. That's all in tonight's show at 6 o'clock with Andrew Catherwood.
Thank you, Mark. Time now for our daily trip to the roof of the 5 News Centre. Rob Glass is there with his weather forecast. What's it like up there today, Rob? Looks quite clear.
Well, it was beautiful this morning. The clouds now moved in, all in advance of another band of rain. At least it's going to be only light, though. It's not going to be affecting our roads as much as they have been affected over in California. An Alaskan storm has tracked southwards down the United States and has been pounding southern California. This is only the second day of rain, but already it's proved far too much for the drains, which weren't designed to cope with such a deluge. The public were warned to stay off the roads, but not warned strongly enough by the looks of it, and many motorists have had to abandon their cars as they stalled and in some cases even began to float away. Still, though, our rain isn't coming from Alaska, it's just a light front, so not really affecting us too much at all. And actually, tomorrow looking more or less like a carbon copy of today. So today's band of rain pushing southwards, possibly turning to snow just over the hills of Scotland, maybe a bit of sleet over western Scotland, but starting to ease off over Northern Ireland as we go through the rest of the afternoon. Best of any sunshine at the moment is over eastern England, but that's going to be extinguished as this band of rain pushes ever south and eastwards. Fairly breezy too up in the north of Scotland. As for the temperatures, though, they're still pretty good for the time of year. 4 degrees Celsius, actually that's not too good up in the north of Scotland, but down in the south a very mild 10 degrees Celsius. As for tonight, we'll wave goodbye to today's band of rain pushing away from the southeast, but clouds thickening in the west once again. Like I say, tomorrow's looking a carbon copy of today. Tonight's temperatures between 3 and 7 degrees Celsius, and then tomorrow it's back to square one, a band of rain pushing in from the west, once again extinguishing the best of tomorrow's sunshine, which is going to be over eastern England, and temperatures perhaps a little bit higher.
Thank you very much indeed, Rob. I'd best go for an eye test, thinking that cloudy sky was in fact clear. Meantime, you can call or fax us with your views on the news. Normal numbers 0870 65 55 50, email 5@itn.co.uk. Updates through the afternoon. Andrew's here at 6. Bye for now.